The great council chamber of the Galactic Empire echoed with laughter. Tall aliens with jeweled robes, scaled generals with glowing eyes, and ministers from star systems all gathered inside a hall larger than any city. They spoke of humans as if they were insects, too small to matter, too weak to fight, too foolish to resist. Some called Earth a dust ball with loud monkeys. Others said it was only good for slaves or resources. Every word was sharp and mocking, but the laughter carried through the hall like thunder. At the center of the chamber stood a single human envoy. He was young compared to the long-lived species around him, dressed not in gold or glowing armor, but in a simple dark uniform. His voice was calm, but it carried an edge that silenced the nearest rows. He spoke of Earth not as prey, but as a home that would never kneel. He warned them not to test humanity, not to mistake silence for weakness. But his words only brought more laughter. A senator from a world of giants slammed his hand on the desk and mocked him, saying, "Do you believe your tiny fleets could fight the Empire? We could erase your planet before you blink." The envoy's eyes narrowed, but he did not shout. He simply answered with a steady voice, "Do not mistake patience for fear. Do not mistake quiet skies for empty skies. If you threaten Earth, you will learn what waits beyond your stars." The laughter returned, louder this time. Alien rulers clutched their sides. Generals wiped tears from their glowing eyes. They leaned, back in their chairs, confident that humanity was only a noise, a short-lived race that had no power against the weight of the Empire. But hidden behind those calm human words was something far greater, something they could not see yet. Far away, on the dark edges of the galaxy, human warships rested in silence. They were not like the fragile craft other young species built. These ships were forged from the lessons of endless wars, from survival on a death world called Earth. They were armored in black steel, powered by reactors that could rip a star in half, and armed with weapons designed not to intimidate, but to end battles in moments. Each warship carried not only guns and missiles, but also the will of a species that had fought for survival since the beginning of time. As the aliens laughed in the council chamber, human fleets waited. In secret shipyards, sovereign-class destroyers hummed with power. In hidden stations, admirals readied their crews. Across Earth, billions of people stood united, not with fear, but with determination. They did not dream of conquest. They dreamed of one thing: never being slaves, never being forgotten, never allowing another to take what was theirs. The envoy left the chamber that day, his steps calm, his expression unchanged. The laughter followed him through the golden doors, echoing in the marble halls of the Empire's capital. But outside the chamber, whispers began to spread. A few alien observers had seen something in the human's eyes, a fire, cold and steady, like a storm hidden in silence. Some dismissed it, others felt uneasy, but none could imagine the truth. The Empire believed humanity was nothing. They believed Earth's people were too fragile to resist. But history had already written a different story. Humans were born on a planet where storms shattered mountains, where beasts hunted men, where survival was never easy. Their past was carved in blood and steel. They had risen from caves to machines that touched the stars, not by luck, but by unbroken struggle. Now, as the Galactic Empire mocked, that same struggle waited to be unleashed. The galaxy did not yet know the meaning of Earth's silence. They did not yet know the meaning of humanity's patience. But they would learn. They would learn the hard way, because in the dark beyond the Empire's borders, the first human warships were already moving. Engines ignited, crews strapped into their stations, and orders flashed through encrypted channels. They were not marching to conquer. They were marching to remind the galaxy of a truth too often forgotten. Humanity does not kneel. The hook was set. The laughter of the Empire would soon turn to silence. And when silence broke, it would be under the thunder of Earth's warships. The Galactic Empire wasted no time. After the human envoy left the council chamber, the admirals and generals laughed again. They claimed it was only right to teach the monkeys a lesson. Within days, A massive fleet was prepared. Over 500 ships armed with the best weapons of the Empire. They believed the battle would be quick, nothing more than a display of power to crush human pride. The commander of this fleet, Lord Admiral Zirak, was confident. He stood tall on the bridge of his flagship, a colossal dreadnought 3 kilometers long, glowing with energy. Around him, alien officers worked calmly as if they were preparing for a routine exercise. "This war will be over before it begins," Zirak declared. His voice carried across every ship in the fleet. "We will erase their defenses, take their planet, and drag their leaders here in chains." The crews cheered. They believed in the Empire's strength. But far from their expectations, something was waiting. At the edge of human-controlled space, black voids stretched endlessly. The stars seemed calm, silent, and distant. To the Empire's fleet, this silence meant weakness. They advanced without caution, laughing at the thought of primitive human ships. Yet the silence they entered was not weakness. It was a trap. Hidden, deep inside the darkness, human warships stirred. Sleek destroyers powered up their engines, frigates aligned their weapons, and carriers readied their fighters. Unlike the Empire's shining ships, human vessels looked like shadows carved from steel. Their surfaces were dark, their hulls heavy, their weapons concealed until the moment of fire. They did not seek beauty. They sought survival. Every ship was built to endure, to kill, to win. The first signal came as a whisper. A human scout ship, small but fast, detected the Empire's fleet and sent one word through encrypted channels. "Contact." Instantly, the silent fleet of humanity came alive. Lights flickered inside command decks. Crews strapped into harnesses. Admirals gave no speeches. Orders were simple, short, and sharp. "Weapons live, shields full, hold fire until range." Admiral Helena Cross, commander of Earth's 7th Fleet, stood at the center of her warship, the Iron Resolve. She was calm, her face lit by the cold glow of monitors. Her officers looked to her for command, but her words were quiet. "Do not fire first. Let them come. Let them think we are prey." Around her, warships moved into position, forming a wall of steel in the void. When the Empire's fleet arrived, their scanners finally picked up the shapes ahead. At first, they mocked what they saw. "Tiny ships," one officer sneered. "Outdated design," said another. They laughed again, until their screen zoomed in and revealed the strange sharp lines of human vessels, the way they carried weapons far heavier than their size suggested. For the first time, Admiral Zirak frowned. "Strange design," he muttered. "But no matter. Begin the advance." The first shots came from the Empire. Beams of plasma cut through the void, glowing green and blue. Hundreds of missiles launched from their dreadnoughts, racing toward human ships. The galaxy had seen these weapons crush dozens of young civilizations before. To the Empire, it was routine. To humanity, it was the test. The missiles struck first. Explosions burst across the void, yet when the fire cleared, the human ships still stood. Their heavy armor absorbed the blasts, their point defense cannons shooting down the rest. Plasma beams hammered shields, but instead of collapsing, the human barriers held firm. Silence followed for a moment, as the Empire's officers stared at their screens in disbelief. "Impossible," one whispered. Then came the reply. Human destroyers opened fire. Railguns, massive weapons that launched projectiles at near light speed, tore through space. The first shot ripped across the battlefield and smashed straight through an enemy cruiser. The ship split apart like glass, breaking into fire and debris. The Empire's laughter died instantly. Another volley followed. Missiles streaked out from human carriers, faster and sharper than anything the aliens had seen before. They evaded defenses, cut through shields, and struck with precision. Entire wings of alien ships vanished in flames. Panic spread through the Empire's fleet. Officers shouted, alarms screamed, and the once proud admiral felt his heart tremble. On the bridge of the Iron Resolve, Admiral Cross gave a single order: "Advance." The human fleet surged forward. They did not rush wildly. They moved with discipline, every ship in formation, every weapon firing in rhythm. They cut through the Empire's fleet like a blade through silk. Alien dreadnoughts, once symbols of power, broke under the assault. Smaller ships tried to flee, but human interceptors hunted them down with deadly speed. In less than an hour, the battlefield was unrecognizable. Wreckage drifted across the stars. Fires burned in the void. And at the center of it all, human warships stood silent, their black hulls gleaming with the light of destruction. For the first time in thousands of years, the Empire had been defeated in open battle. Their laughter was gone. Fear replaced it. Across the galaxy, whispers began to spread. Whispers of a species the Empire had mocked, but who had just shattered their pride, and this was only the beginning. The news of the first battle spread faster than light. Across the Galactic Empire, voices rose in disbelief. Entire species, long used to seeing the Empire crush every rival, whispered in secret that something had changed. Merchants gossiped in starports. Miners spoke in hushed tones across radio channels. Even the slaves who served alien masters dared to whisper the word, humans. But inside the high halls of the Empire, pride still refused to bend. Senators shouted that the loss was a fluke, a trick of chance. Generals claimed the humans must have stolen technology, or that their ships were hidden weapons built by other powers. They could not accept the truth that the Empire had been struck down by a species they once called insects. Lord Admiral Sirac, bruised and humiliated, returned with only a handful of ships. His fleet of 500 was gone. He stood before the Emperor himself, shaking while the golden throne loomed high above. The Emperor's eyes burned with cold fire. "One planet defeated you?" he asked in a voice that made the chamber tremble. "One small species crushed. The pride of the Empire?" Sirac fell to his knees. "My Emperor, their ships are strange. Their weapons too strong, too precise. It was unlike any foe we have faced." The Emperor's hand tightened on the arm of his throne. "Then we will show them the true power of the Empire. We will send more ships. We will drown them in fire." His words thundered across the court, but beneath that power was a shadow, fear, hidden deep. While the Empire planned revenge, humanity was not idle. On the bridge of the Iron Resolve, Admiral Helena Cross looked out over the wreckage field, where alien dreadnoughts still drifted. Her crew worked in silence, collecting data, studying the destroyed ships. To them, this was not victory to boast about. It was only the first test. She spoke quietly, but every officer listened. "They will return with more. They always do. The Empire cannot forgive this defeat. Prepare every ship. Alert every colony. We stand together, or we fall alone." Back on Earth, leaders gathered in secret. The United Human Council sat in a chamber deep beneath the surface, protected by layers of steel and shields. Generals from old nations, scientists, and admirals filled the room. They did not argue. They did not boast. They spoke only of survival. Humanity had always been a divided race, but now, before the shadow of the Empire, they were united as one. Billions across the planet worked together. Factories built warships day and night. Shipyards expanded into orbit. Young men and women volunteered in endless numbers, not for glory, but because they understood the truth. If humanity fell, no one would rise for them. When the Empire's reinforcements finally came, they did not come with hundreds of ships. They came with thousands. Over 2,000 vessels, dreadnoughts and carriers, cruisers and destroyers, all glittering with the arrogance of centuries. They believed their overwhelming numbers would erase the shame of the first defeat. From orbit, their fleet looked like a wall of fire. Their commanders sent messages across the stars, boasting that Earth would burn, that humanity would kneel, in chains. They laughed again, but this time the laughter was brittle, forced as though they were trying to bury their own fear. And then the battle began. The Empire struck first with everything they had. Plasma storms lit the void. Missiles rained like meteors. Entire wings of alien ships surged forward, screaming war cries. The galaxy watched the live feeds with horror and awe. Everyone expected humanity to break. Everyone believed Earth would finally fall. But the humans did not break. Human warships moved in formation, their black steel cutting through the stars. They fought with precision no one had seen before. Each destroyer covered another. Each cruiser shielded its allies. They struck with railguns, missiles, and energy beams that cut through the chaos with perfect aim. The Empire's numbers crashed against them like waves against a cliff, but the cliff did not fall. And then the Sovereign class appeared. From the darkness behind the human lines, colossal shapes decloaked. Each one was the size of a city, armored so heavily that enemy fire glanced off like rain. Their weapons glowed like suns before unleashing storms of destruction. One shot from a Sovereign's main cannon ripped through 3 alien dreadnoughts, in a single line, splitting them open like broken glass. The pride of the Empire shattered that day. Their fleets, once feared across 1,000 worlds, were torn apart before the eyes of the galaxy. Alien admirals screamed in disbelief. Soldiers panicked. Ships fled in chaos, only to be hunted down by human interceptors. At the center of the destruction, Admiral Cross gave only one order: no mercy. End it quickly. When the smoke cleared, the stars were filled with wreckage. 2,000 ships of the Empire had come. Less than 100 limped away. And humanity, once mocked, as weak, stood unbroken. The laughter of the Empire was gone. In its place, silence spread across the galaxy. A silence filled with fear. A silence that whispered the beginning of a new age. Because humanity had risen, and nothing would ever be the same again. The Empire could not hide the truth any longer. 2 defeats, fleets shattered, dreadnoughts destroyed. Humanity had humiliated them before the eyes of the galaxy. Across 1,000 worlds, fear began to rise. For the first time in centuries, alien rulers whispered that the Empire might not be eternal, but the Emperor refused to bend. He gathered the largest armada ever assembled, 10,000 ships. It was no longer a war of pride. It was a war of survival for the Empire's image. If they did not destroy humanity now, their rule across the stars would collapse. The galaxy watched as the armada formed. It stretched across space like a living wall of steel and fire, each ship glowing with energy, each weapon charged. To many it seemed no force could withstand such power. Alien broadcasters announced that Earth would be wiped out in a single strike. Citizens across the Empire celebrated early, desperate to believe the shame would finally end. But in the darkness of deep space, humanity was ready. On the edge of Sol, hidden stations lit up. Colossal warships emerged from shadow, bigger than anything the Empire imagined. These were the Sovereign class, but not just 1 or 2. Dozens. Each one a fortress of black steel, each one carrying weapons that could tear apart moons. Behind them, carriers released wings of fighters. Destroyers formed tight screens, and cruisers prepared heavy barrages. Humanity had not come unprepared. They had been waiting for this very moment. On the bridge of the Iron Resolve, Admiral Cross looked at the tactical map. Thousands of red signals filled the screen, the Empire's armada. Her officers looked pale, even fearful. But she spoke calmly, her voice steady. They believe numbers will save them. They believe fear will break us. They are wrong. Today, the galaxy will learn who we are. The order spread. Advance. When the armada arrived near Jupiter's orbit, the void shook with energy. The Empire unleashed its storm. Thousands of beams, millions of missiles, a wall of destruction aimed at humanity. For a moment, the galaxy believed Earth would finally fall. But then came the reply. The Sovereign-class ships fired. Each cannon roared like thunder, each shot brighter than a sun. Their projectiles ripped through dreadnoughts as if they were made of glass. A single strike split entire lines of ships apart. Missiles launched by human carriers swarmed like a storm of fireflies, weaving past defenses and detonating inside enemy hulls. The Empire's perfect wall cracked instantly. Alien admirals screamed orders, trying to rally their forces. But the panic spread too fast. Human destroyers pierced their formations. railguns tearing ships into fragments. Fighters darted through the chaos, cutting down enemy squadrons before they could regroup. Every move humanity made was precise, disciplined, and devastating. In the Empire's command ship, Admiral Korath watched in horror as his fleet collapsed. He had believed victory was certain, but his screen showed disaster. Thousands of red icons vanished, one after another, replaced by silence and wreckage. "This cannot be," he muttered. But it was. Across the galaxy, the live broadcasts continued. Billions of aliens stared at their screens as the impossible unfolded. The mighty Empire, undefeated for centuries, was being torn apart by the very species they mocked. The silence of the Watchers was heavier than any weapon, because they knew history was changing before their eyes. Then humanity revealed their final card. From the far side of the battlefield, more Sovereign-class ships decloaked. They had waited until the Empire was fully engaged, then struck from behind. The Empire's armada was caught in a vice, trapped, surrounded, destroyed. The turning point had arrived. The battle raged for hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. When the guns finally fell silent, the void around Jupiter was filled with wreckage. Of 10,000 ships, barely a few hundred limped away. The greatest armada in galactic history had been broken by humanity. On the iron resolve, Admiral Cross stood tall. Her voice carried across every channel, across every fleet, across the stars themselves. Let the galaxy remember this day. Humanity does not seek conquest, but if you come to our home, if you threaten our people, this will be your fate. We will not kneel. We will never kneel. Her words became legend. They spread faster than light, whispered in every corner of the galaxy. And as alien rulers listened, their pride cracked. For centuries, they had laughed at humanity. But now, they feared them. The turning point was not just a battle. It was the end of an age. The Empire's dominance was broken, and a new power had risen from the shadows, one the galaxy would never forget. The battlefield around Jupiter was silent. Wreckage of alien dreadnoughts drifted like broken skeletons, glowing fires slowly dying in the void. Human warships held position, their black steel hulls shining under the distant sun. They did not cheer. They did not boast. They only waited in silence, watching the remains of the greatest armada in galactic history. Across the galaxy, the reaction was instant. On trading worlds, merchants stared at news screens with wide eyes. On slave worlds, whispers spread through dark tunnels, whispers of hope. On neutral systems, rulers gathered in secret, asking the same question. If humanity can destroy the Empire's fleet, what happens now? Inside the throne hall of the Galactic Emperor, silence was heavier than stone. The Emperor sat unmoving, his golden crown dim, his court trembling before him. He had promised his people that humanity would be erased. Instead, 10,000 of his ships were gone. His admirals knelt in fear, their voices weak, their excuses empty. For the first time in centuries, the Emperor felt the cold touch of doubt. But humanity did not rush to claim conquest. On the iron resolve, Admiral Helena Cross stood before her officers. Her face was calm, her voice steady. We do not fight to conquer. We do not fight for slaves or thrones. We fight only so that Earth will never kneel. Her words carried across the human fleets, and every soldier, every pilot, every crew member stood taller with pride. The Council on Earth broadcasted a message to the galaxy. It was not long, not boastful, but it shook the stars. To all species, humanity seeks no empire. We ask for peace. But if you bring war to our people, if you laugh at our existence, if you come to enslave us, know this. We will answer with fire. We will answer with steel. And we will not fall. That message traveled faster than light, reaching systems far beyond the Empire's reach. On planets ruled by fear, slaves whispered it in joy. On colonies under alien governors, young rebels repeated it like a prayer. Even in the homes of enemy soldiers, the words echoed, words that planted seeds of doubt and fear. The Empire's pride was broken. Their fleets were scattered. Their generals argued in secret. Their senators feared revolt. Across the galaxy, cracks began to spread in the mighty walls of their rule, all because of one species they once mocked, all because humanity refused to bow. On Earth itself, life went on. Children still played under the blue sky, factories still worked day and night, and families still gathered under warm lights. But in their hearts, everyone knew they were part of something larger. They had defended not just a planet, but a future. They had shown the galaxy that survival, when fueled by unity, could shake even the oldest empire. The galaxy would never forget the sight of human warships in the void, black steel against the fire of 10,000 enemies. They would never forget the silence after the battle, when the humans stood unbroken. They would never forget the message that followed. Earth will never kneel. In distant systems, alien rulers began to reconsider their place. Some reached out with offers of peace. Some sought alliances afraid of being next. And some, bitter and desperate, planned for revenge in secret. But all of them now carried one truth in their hearts. The humans were not weak, not fragile, not prey. They were a storm, and storms do not bow. The story of humanity spread, becoming legend even before the wreckage cooled. Songs were sung, tales were told, and the image of black warships became a symbol of defiance. Children on alien worlds whispered of humans as saviors. Soldiers spoke of them as nightmares. And the Empire, once the unchallenged ruler of the stars, now lived with a fear they could not erase. For humanity, it was not the end. It was only the beginning. They had defended their home, but they knew more battles would come. More enemies would rise. More tests would challenge them. Yet, standing together, united in fire and steel, they were ready. Because the galaxy had laughed. The galaxy had mocked. But now it would remember, and from that day forward, every star carried a warning. Do not mistake silence for weakness. Do not mistake patience for fear. For when Earth's warships arrive, the galaxy itself will tremble.